Language of performance describes or affects the performance of a legal act. Sounds straightforward enough, but confusion arises between language of performance and language of obligation, which is an undertaking to perform at a later time. For language of performance, use simple present tense and an active voice. Let us look at the following examples. Licensor shall grant licensee the license. This sentence is not in simple present tense. Shall is the verb for first person future tense. I shall return, shall we dance? By the use of shall, this sentence does not affect the grant of the license immediately. It is only an undertaking to grant. This is language of obligation. Compare this sentence with licensor grants licensee the license. This sentence is now in simple present tense. The language is direct and affects the grant immediately. Use hereby for ritual performative function. Licensor hereby grants licensee the license. Here refers to the execution of this document. This sentence transforms an agreement to an instrument. The grant is made valid immediately, but at this point you ask yourself as a lawyer, if the licensee fails to pay royalty, it is a breach of this instrument. But the grant is still valid because this is an instrument of grant, not a contract with the requirement of mutual performance. So what do you do in this situation? Licensor hereby grants licensee the license subject to the following terms and conditions. Now, this is a confusing usage of language. You have language of performance hereby grants for use to effect an obligation shall be subject to the terms and conditions. So to avoid this confusing usage, you go back to licensor shall grant licensee the license subject to the following terms and conditions. So at this point, we have made a full circle from language of performance in simple present tense to language of obligation by the use of shall. I hope this exercise shows the importance and the subtlety of the drafting language, as we will deal with the language of obligation more fully later. Language of performance, passive voice. Sometimes a stronger language of performance can be drafted by omitting the definitive agent in order to be purposely vague on who is the actor. For example, in a tenancy agreement, the tenant will not store any hazardous materials on site during the term of the lease. The actor agent is the tenant, and it is clear that it is the tenant who will not store any hazardous materials. Compare this with, no hazardous materials will be stored on site during the term of the lease. The actor agent is not defined within the sentence, but on the basis that this is a tenancy agreement, it's clear the tenant is the party who is obligated to ensure that no hazardous material will be stored, but it's not to be stored by anyone. So the passive voice effectively enlarges the scope of the performance. Thank you. Please like, comment, and subscribe.